The first thing I saw that morning was three full-size buses grinding to a stop at the end of my gravel driveway. Diesel engines coughing like some circus had rolled in overnight. And right then my coffee nearly hit the ground. Doors hissed open and out spilled a small army families with coolers, kids with floaties, older folks in folding chairs like it was their God-given right to use my pasture as a park. And the kicker. They had a giant banner, HOA Summer Extravaganza, thank you to our generous host. That was the moment I just about choked on my own coffee, because I didn't need three guesses to know who was behind this. Karen Queen Bee of the HOA across the highway, the woman who had spent a whole year trying to rope my land into her little fiefdom of rules and dues, and here she was, she'd gone and told three buses full of people my property was some kind of public amenity. Let me tell you, I wasn't born yesterday. My land had never not once been part of their HOA. But Karen had been harassing me with letters about my unauthorized goats and the wrong shade of red on my barn, acting like I was some rebel outlaw because I wouldn't show up to her meetings or pay her fake dues. She tried to quote some clause about community buffer zones, but I ignored her right up until she rolled out this stunt. What nobody on those buses realized was I'd already lost my patience weeks ago. I'd reinforced my steel gate, rerouted my camera feeds, and installed a lock I could control with a tap on my phone. So I let them pile out, setting up folding tables, cranking open coolers, grilling hot dogs, stringing up bunting like it was the 4th of July, while Karen, perched up front in a neon pink pantsuit, started barking orders with a clipboard and a megaphone. She welcomed the community and called this a victory over selfishness, which would have been hilarious if it wasn't my pasture under siege. Her people clapped and set up lawn chairs, probably thinking I'd cave in front of 100 witnesses. You know what I mean? The nerve. But at 900 a.m. sharp, I tapped my phone. The gate swung shut with a metallic thunk that echoed across the whole field. Suddenly, all those bus drivers realized they were fenced in, and Karen's face drained faster than a busted water main. She tried to play it off, snapping into the megaphone that this was public land and they had rights, but you could see the panic spreading. One of the bus drivers shuffled over hat in hand, muttering he'd been told it was a public event. I just sipped my coffee and said, "You might want to park those buses tight. Nobody's leaving until the sheriff sorts this out." Goats in the distance started bleating like even they knew this was about to turn biblical. You could feel the mood swing. Some people started packing up, others just stared. And Karen stomped up to the gate, her voice shaking as she hissed, "Open this right now, you're making a mistake." I told her straight, "You brought 3 buses of trespassers onto my land. If anyone's made a mistake, it's you." Behind her, the crowd started muttering, people glaring, realizing they'd been conned. But this was only round 1, because if you know folks like Karen, you know she never folds, she escalates. I'd planned for that too, cameras rolling, motion sensors on a few surprises if she tried anything wild. By now the sun was rising, kids were getting bored, parents were restless, and Karen was running from group to group, barking into her phone, begging county officials and HOA board members to fix her mess. Her pink pantsuit, which had looked so commanding, now stood out like a flag of surrender. Meanwhile, the county zoning guy, a side character I never expected, found a spot under an oak tree, arms crossed, lips pursed, already planning how to testify when the sheriff showed up. Let me back up a sec. This land had been in my family for 3 generations, never under any association, never anybody's business but ours. When the subdivision popped up, I wanted to be neighborly. Karen didn't. She started with fake friendly smiles. Then it turned to letters, accusations, threats. She even tried to ticket my truck for parking near my own barn. When she realized I wouldn't budge, she made me the villain at her HOA meetings. That's why I built the gate. Not to keep neighbors out, but to draw a line. Karen never respected lines, not if she hadn't drawn them herself. When the sheriff finally rolled up, blue lights cutting through the crowd, news vans following behind, it was like watching the final act of a bad play. Karen lunged for him, yelling about being held hostage. The sheriff looked her up and down, then at the buses, then at me. "Ma'am, why are you on his property?" he asked. She stammered about community land and rights, but when he asked for a deed, she came up empty. I handed over my paperwork, title, survey, tax records. He nodded. That was it. Now the crowd was done, believing her people started yelling, "You lied to us, and we want our fees back." News reporters jostled for sound bites. The sheriff told me quietly, "You want to press charges?" "Not today," I said. I just want them gone." So he ordered everyone back on the buses, and Karen tried to rally one last stand, but nobody was listening anymore. The crowd streamed past her parents dragging kids, the buses fired up, ready to get the heck out. The most cinematic moment, Karen alone by the gate, makeup streaked pink suit, limp clipboard shaking in her hand. "You've humiliated me," she hissed as I walked by. I just looked her in the eye and said, "You did that yourself. I just locked the gate." The buses pulled away, the news crews packed up, the pasture emptied out, and I stood there in the dust feeling a strange mix of justice and exhaustion. But if you think Karen was done, you've never dealt with someone who can't lose in front of a crowd. Next morning I got a call from a lawyer threatening civil action for unlawful detention. A reporter wanted an exclusive interview. Even the zoning officer texted me, "She's convening an emergency board meeting," all while my goats chewed weeds completely oblivious. This was never about just a party, it was about drawing a line in the sand for anyone who thinks community rules outrank private property. Karen tried everything: drones over my field, new rounds of paperwork, zoning reviews, anonymous threats in my mailbox, news segments painting her as a martyr. It was a war of attrition, paperwork, and public opinion. But every step she took only dug her hole deeper. When it finally came out that she'd used HOA money for her bus stunt, her own board removed her as president. I got a letter signed by dozens of those guests apologizing for trespassing, offering to testify if needed. That changed the whole story. It was no longer me against an army, it was just me against Karen. Even stripped of power, Karen wouldn't stop. She left nasty notes, stalked my driveway in sunglasses, sent strange cars to film my fence. But the world was done listening. Leaked emails showed she'd planned to sabotage my land, and that got her hit with a court order to keep away. When the county finally certified in writing that my land could never be claimed by the HOA, it was like flipping the last page of a long, ridiculous novel. And here's where the ending actually matters, because after all the noise and spectacle, the buses and banners, the news crews and memes, it was never about humiliating anybody. It was about holding the line, not just for me, but for anybody tired of being pushed around by power-hungry neighbors. When I got invited to speak at a community meeting, I went and I listened, and I said my piece. The war ended not with a showdown, but with neighbors apologizing, a handshake, and a group of kids asking to feed my goats. That's how it should be. So now every evening I sit on my porch as the sun drops behind the pasture, the steel gate glinting under the last light, goats wandering free. The land is mine again, the line's clear, and the lesson is simple. If you're going to defend something, do it with patience, do it with evidence, and never ever let bluster rewrite your reality. Yeah, that happened. Now let me ask you, what would you have done if a whole HOA tried to take over your land? Drop a comment and let me know. Where do you stand on property rights, community rules, and drawing the line between being a good neighbor and standing your ground? I'll be reading.